Most people think sexual magnetism is related to appearance, a sculpted body, an intoxicating perfume, or witty words. But this is a superficial illusion. True magnetism has little to do with superficial appearances, but everything to do with the energy that radiates from within. Carl Jung once said, "What you repress eventually rules you. What you integrate radiates through you." It is this invisible radiance that forms the real attraction. What makes a person unforgettable is not what they show, but what they carry within. Beauty can dazzle, but if the energy that drives it transmits insecurity, it goes wrong. True magnetism is born from a silence charged with presence, from a gaze that seems to penetrate beyond the surface into the invisible. It is not about taking, but about containing. Contain desire. Contain the urge to impress. Contain the desire to please. Magnetism is forged in the tension we master. The fine line between instinct and restraint, between pure impulse and clear purpose, between subtlety and expectation. Jung described the unconscious as a living reservoir, a hidden well where everything denied, repressed or ignored continues to pulse. And it is precisely this reserve that gives some people their depth. They exude something intangible but undeniable, because they have integrated their fears, their shadows, and their instincts. They feel layers within themselves, a density of being. The body simply reflects what the soul harbors. Thus, no copied style, no repeated seduction, no mask can generate true attraction without authentic energy. What attracts others is never the movement itself, but the state of being that motivates it. Jung spoke of autonomous archetypes and complexes, fragments of the psyche with a life of their own. A person burdened with unresolved conflicts evokes chaos. An integrated person evokes coherence. Do you want to be magnetic? Start here, don't rush. The first law is simple. Never be the first to explain. Most people rush to fill the silence, to console, to prove that everything is okay. But true magnetism belongs to those who know how to remain silent and undisturbed. The moment you walk into a room and feel the need to speak simply to be accepted, you're already giving away your power. Your energy is adapting to others. What's truly fascinating is the opposite. The grounded presence of someone who refuses to conform, who stays centered even in the face of tension. This is what sparks curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway to desire. Lack of haste creates tension, and where attention is sustained, fascination is born. He who does not rush controls the pace. Second rule, never seek to conquer. Make yourself noticed. We know that attempts to impress are born of necessity, and nothing is more repugnant than an explicit attempt to attract attention. The most attractive person is the one who moves naturally, as if perfectly at ease with their own existence, as if they need nothing. This is not arrogance, but fulfillment. This is the state of one who seeks not validation, but rather experience. This is the archetype of the silent sage, the one who walks lightly, because they have made peace with their inner self. Jung asserted that libido, understood not as sexual energy but as a life force, must be directed with intention. By investing your energy in observation, rather than presumption, you begin to see what others do not, and those who see deeply are deeply touched. Rule number 3, master your presence before you seek to be present. It is a common misconception that presence depends on attention. However, what defines your presence isn't your presence, but the influence you exert in the room, even in silence. It's possible to be the center of attention without actually being one, and it's this kind of presence that mesmerizes. Magnetic people don't make noise, but they're missed because the space they create is memorable. How? By being fully present, neither in the past, nor in the future, nor in action, nor in comparison, but in pure and lucid observation. These people don't look much, but when they do, they leave a mark. They touch little, but when they do, they leave a mark. Touching doesn't require force when it comes from someone who is narrow-minded. This is where the most subtle psychodynamics come into play. The control of anticipation. What makes something desirable is not its frequency, but the length of the wait. Magnetism develops in the interval, in the strategic delay, in the instant when one could play, but does not. One could praise, but remain silent. You could approach, but back away slightly. This activates the brain's search system. Dopamine is not generated by reward, but by anticipation. It's a fundamental principle of neuroscience. And whoever masters expectation masters desire. Jung spoke of the tension of opposites as the true engine of psychic transformation. And what is seduction, if not the dance between opposites? Approach and withdrawal, access and distancing, action and contemplation. Most people want to solve problems quickly. They want immediate guarantees. But magnetism consists of leaving doors ajar, of suggesting rather than revealing, of creating mental images rather than explaining. Those who over-explain eliminate mystery, and where there is no mystery, there is no error. For desire is driven by what we do not yet have, but feel within our grasp. The mistake is to reveal everything at once. Body, attention, history, emotion, all of this saturates the field and weakens the energy. The secret lies in moderation, in modulating surrender, in the art of leaving traces rather than maps. The unconscious loves symbols, and magnetic people are full of symbols. Ambiguous gestures, enigmatic glances. Pause is more eloquent than words. None of this can be faked. The other's subconscious senses the falsehood. But when these gestures come from someone who is truly in control of their impulses, the effect is immediate because the body speaks, and that of a fully integrated person moves differently. Touch is more conscious, gaze more intense. Breathing has a different rhythm. And all of this is communicated without the need to utter a single word. Carl Jung said that the collective unconscious responds to universal symbols, and that a person who becomes a symbol of security, depth, and freedom becomes a living archetype for those who know them, and they never forget them. They begin to shape their dreams, thoughts, and desires. This is magnetism. The fourth rule is to master emotional synchronization. Psychological synchronization isn't a clock. There's a right time to approach, a right time to interrupt, and the precise moment when tension becomes fertile. Those who master magnetism understand that impact lies not in excess, but in precision. It's like playing a note on the piano. It's not enough to play loudly or softly. We must connect to the moment when silence begs for sound. This mastery is not learned through imitation, but through attention. We only know the right moment when we learn to listen to the invisible field between us and the other. When we perceive the moment when the gaze demands presence without saying it, when we perceive the other's body opening before they even move. Jung called this synchronicity the mysterious intersection between the inner and outer worlds. When we are fully within ourselves, we grasp. When we are internally distracted, we force. This emotional synchronicity is like a dance. The dancer who tries to lead too soon stumbles. He who waits too long misses the music. Magnetism is rhythm. It is the ability to perceive the emotional rhythm of another without losing sight of one's own. Magnetic presence is therefore not invasive. It adapts without being repressed. It penetrates the other's emotional field as if it already belonged there, but withdraws at its peak so as not to become predictable. This creates an emotional memory. That feeling that something special happened, even without a clear explanation, the brain doesn't cling to what is rationally satisfying. It clings to what is not completely resolved. The memory that returns is not the most intense, but the most unfinished. Fifth rule, use absence as language. Many believe the secret lies in consistency. But the human body does not react the same way to constant stimulation. Consistency loses its value. What is interrupted at the right time leaves a mark. Magnetism consists of inducing a strategic absence, a conscious disappearance, and an intentional withdrawal, not by punishment but by contrast. When one becomes too present, one loses one's lucidity. But when one withdraws into one's full splendor, one becomes a ghost. And ghosts are more seductive than real people, because they occupy an imaginary and symbolic space, the realm of projections. Jung said that where there is no consciousness, destiny manifests, and those who master magnetism know exactly where to stop so that the other remains within them. This movement of withdrawal is not intended to generate insecurity, but rather to stir the desire for reunion. Only those who do not fear absence can master it brilliantly. Most disappear to seek revenge, manipulate, or escape, but the magnetism disappears gracefully, as if to offer space, as if convinced that its trace speaks louder than its presence. This absence is not a rejection, it is an invitation, and a silent invitation is worth 1,000 promises. He asks, "Do you still feel me even without seeing me?" If the answer is yes, the connection is not created in the body, but in the psyche. And connections created in the psyche are not broken by distance. The sixth rule is to make touch a portal. Most people touch by reflex, by impulse, by necessity. But magnetic touch is not born of necessity, but of intention. It is a gesture laden with meaning, slower, more conscious, more symbolic. It appears when the body is already emotionally prepared and, therefore, imbued with a profound experience. A simple touch on the back, a light brush on the arm, a finger that slides a few millimeters further than necessary. Simple gestures but of immense emotional density, emanating from someone who feels, perceives, and acts with precision. Jung said that the body harbors psychic content, and that is why a gesture conveys more than a simple touch. It conveys information. Those who touch with presence convey a sense of care, strength, and security. And all this without words. It is at this stage that the body becomes a map. Not a map to be explored, but to be deciphered. Magnetic people don't take shortcuts. They observe, touch less but touch correctly, which activates the primitive regions of the brain. The lyrical system responds to touch, smell, temperature, and breathing. True seduction lies not in what we see, but in what we feel inside. An unexpected but respectful touch, a pause before contact, slower breathing that regulates the other's rhythm. The body is a radar, but it only works for those present. Distracted people don't notice the subtle changes in the pupils. Attentive people don't even perceive the emotional vibrations of the skin. All of this requires exceptional self-control, because desire tends to rush us. But magnetism is born from the opposite, from the calm of those who, even when they desire, do not rush. Jung saw desire not as an enemy, but as an energy to be transmuted. When the impulse is controlled without being repressed, it transforms. It becomes a penetrating gaze, a subtle gesture, an enveloping presence, and it feels in the air like a silent electricity, like a contagious breath, like a magnetic field that seems to attract even without movement. Is there something deeper in all this? The power to contain one's own narrative. Magnetism doesn't tell the whole story. It suggests leaving empty spaces. It allows the other to imagine, complete, and project. And this active participation of the other creates a bond. Jung said that the unconscious seeks completeness, and when someone becomes the symbol of what we lack, we feel an attraction. This is how fascination is born, not by being complete, but by reflecting what the other person is trying to accomplish. Not by being obvious, but by being enigmatic enough to keep the subconscious searching for answers. Sexual magnetism isn't about being desirable, but about being unforgettable. This only happens when the other person doesn't understand exactly why they were so deeply moved, for the body may forget the gesture, but the subconscious never forgets the emotional impact it left. What leaves a mark is not what is said, but what is felt between the words. What transforms is not a constant presence, but a presence that penetrates deeply, even in a short time. It is not the quantity of interaction, but the quality of the field generated. The seventh rule is to never repeat patterns. Human desire dies in predictability. The unconscious yearns for movement, surprise, and renewal, and this is precisely why relationships die, not from the absence of love, but from the repetition of the same gesture, the same word, the same moment, the same approach. The magnetism fades when the other person already knows what you're going to say, when every contact is identical to the previous one, when every encounter has the same emotional cadence. The unconscious needs variation. Jung said that psychic energy is organized in spirals, not straight lines. This means that any repetition that is too frequent becomes an emotional routine, and routine dulls the senses. If you want to keep someone emotionally alert, never transmit the same energy twice. Today it's hot, tomorrow it's windy. Today we dive, tomorrow we float. Fascination thrives on the unexpected, not on exaggeration or chaos, but on an emotional intelligence that gracefully balances extremes. A magnetic person knows how to vary without contradicting themselves. They don't change moods, they change vibrations. Sometimes their presence is ardent, sometimes hazy. This creates a vibrant and nuanced field, a field that the other seeks to decipher without ever succeeding. This is what fuels desire, the feeling that there is always something new to reveal, a woman or man who expresses themselves. In the same way, every day becomes unstable and boring. And boredom is the opposite of desire. Magnetism lies at the border between the familiar and the mysterious. If everything is new, it frightens. If everything is the same, it disconnects. The art is to create variations within the same tone. Rule 8. Tap into your primal instincts. The conscious mind is slow, critical, and logical. But desire is born in more ancient places, in the body, in the senses, in smell, in the skin. True magnetism penetrates the reptilian unconscious. That's why small details matter so much. The speed of your speech, the rhythm of your breathing, your movements as you enter a space. All of this is registered non-verbally. The other's body senses more than it hears. Jung asserted that the psyche is both personal and collective, and that it is in the collective that archetypes live. By embodying an archetype, the silent hunter, the intuitive goddess, the serene sage, you activate unconscious responses derived from millennia of evolution. You are not just yourself. You access memories that belong not only to the other, but to the species. And that's why certain presences touch you so deeply. They don't appeal to ego, but to instinct. Use your gaze like an arrow. Don't look to see, look to touch. A gaze that lingers a second longer than intended creates tension. A gaze that changes too quickly reflects insecurity. A gaze that is too focused becomes a threat. But a steady gaze with presence and unspoken intentions allows us to glimpse possibilities. And where there is possibility, there is fantasy. And fantasy is the most powerful fuel of desire. A caress can be forgotten. A look can do nothing. Because a look carrying symbolism penetrates layers inaccessible to the skin. It activates the imagination, which in turn activates chemicals. Dopamine, norepinephrine, oxytocin without contact. Magnetism is not contact, it is a field. The ninth rule creates a sensory dependence. It is not an addiction, but a signature. Every human being possesses a set of gestures, sense, tones, and patterns of approach, but few translate them into language. Those who master magnetism become unforgettable because they create unique sensations. It's their touch, the sequence of their gestures, the way they bring their faces together, the silence before the kiss, the slowness with which they brush against your neck, their alternation of intensity and absence. All of this creates a unique experience. And when the other's body associates deep pleasure with this sequence, it begins to desire not just any caress, but that caress, not just any kiss, but that kiss, not just any company, but that emotional vibration that only a human being can transmit. This is what makes someone dangerous. They are irreplaceable not as a person, but as an experience. Because we can have the same perfume, the same body, the same style, but we cannot reproduce the psychic field created. And it's hopeless. Because the absence felt is not that of something visible, but of a feeling. Jung said that the unconscious feeds on symbols, and that's exactly what you must become. A symbol of pleasure, of depth, of exceptional presence. Don't be just a name, be an emotional territory. And wherever you are absent, may you feel a different emptiness. An emptiness where nothing else fits, where nothing else is enough. 10th and final rule. Desire intensely but control elegantly. The most common mistake is to believe that self-control is the absence of desire. But a strong desire is essential. It is this desire that warms the presence, gives truth to the gesture, makes the gaze vibrate. The problem is not desire but urgency. Magnetism is the art of desiring deeply, without giving in to desire. It is containing the fire without extinguishing it. It is making it visible, but never implicit in the attitude. Jung called the process of transformation alchemy, taking raw material and refining it. Desire is raw material. Its mastery lies in the ability to elevate it without denying it, to transform it into power, magnetism, and aura. He who masters his own fire warms without burning, warms the field, warms memory, warms dreams, and then something changes. The protagonist ceases to be an ordinary man, an ordinary woman, to become an emotional reference, a sensory memory that no new experience can replace. The voice still resonates days later. The touch still throbs on the skin, even after the last encounter. For everything that was done with presence, and true presence is rare. Most people live fragmented lives filled with pretense and anxiety. But those who live fully become medicine. They heal wounds without promises. They help others feel more whole simply by their presence, not by their words, but by their identity. And that's when magnetism becomes transcendence. It ceases to be mere attraction and becomes upliftment, inspiration. Carl Jung would say that at this stage, the individual has become a symbol, a living representation of what the others unconscious must exploit in order to flourish. It is no longer a question of seduction, but of transformation. The true power of attraction lies not in the conquest of bodies, but in the elevation of souls. It's not about guaranteeing a presence, but about leaving a legacy. Those who consciously master magnetism no longer need to manipulate, for they understand that the body is only the surface. The true field is the soul, and the soul responds to truth, to density, to beauty that does not scream, but vibrates. Now that you know this, nothing you did before will be enough, because you no longer want to be simply attractive. You want to be unforgettable. You no longer want to have someone. You want to be someone unforgettable. From now on, your touch will be more conscious, your silence more eloquent, your absence more powerful, and your presence felt. Will change the atmosphere. For your energy will not be charged with anxiety, but with intention. Not with need, but with fulfillment. You will cease to be a character seeking to please and will become the source, the space, the symbol. You will not be a mere experience. You will be the experience. Remember that everything you have seen here is not a mere technique. It's a philosophy of life, applied psychology and refined energy. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious shapes destiny, and now you have the opportunity to consciously shape yours. Subscribe, like, and dive into this profound journey. For what begins with desire can lead to awakening. Your magnetism doesn't need to be learned. It needs to be revealed.